A global climate crisis is drawing the attention of activists, politicians, scientists, and the general public at large, not only due to the increasing rate of extreme climate events across the world and the severity. Of the destruction caused by these events. To communities and ecosystem, but also due to their continuous coverage in the media. At the same time, climate change debate is shaping the political landscape in several countries, with some countries seriously concerned and pressing for immediate action, while others do not see it as an immediate threat. Even in the developed world, lack of adequate information, evidence-based data, and uncertainty in forecast are helping helping skeptics飯なんだけど politicians in both developed and developing countries to argue that climate change is not an immediate threat to global society. Such ignorance leads to short-sighted policy decision and lack of needed transformative action and support for investments to combat climate crisis. Since 1996, assignment reports by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change were prepared, and recommendations were made for cutting down greenhouse gas emissions. Unfortunately, some world leaders do not recognize the seriousness of the threats and fail to stand by the commitments made to reduce emissions. まあ、アメリカと中国が従わなかったら無理じゃないかな。インドも、経済発展したかったら従わないよね。As global temperature rises to 1.5 Celsius by the end of the century, the IPCC on the sixth assessment report states that it is unequivocal不平等イクイボーカル that human influence has warmed the atmosphere, ocean, and land, and that widespread and rapid changes in the atmosphere, ocean,クリオスフィア、なんとかスフィア、どこだ、クリスタルとかクリオスフィア and バイオスフィア、対義語っぽい、生物圏となんとか圏、ハブオカード。According to the report, the world has rapidly warmed by 1.1 Celsius, which is higher than pre-industrial levels, and is now moving toward 1 Celsius. A critical shares hold なんだっけ、絶対見たことある。スレスホールド。忘れてるね。Levels that world leaders agree to maintain and take measures to prevent warming above the level. The complex shifts observed in recent years affecting our planet's weather and climate systems are contributing to the melting of glacier. 氷河なんだろうけど、発音がわからないですね。グレイシアでいいんですか？グレイシア、sea level rise and increase in temperature. The atmospheric carbon dioxide levels reached a record high in 2020, unprecedented 予測できないアンプレセデント unprecedented in human history as the world was also grappling with one of the worst pandemic コロナのことかコロナ The year 2020 was also one of the hottest years recorded globally and the hottest ever in Europe that has led to serious forest fires and floods. The wildfires in California and Australia, the destructive floods in Germany. ドイツで洪水あったの知らんかった。デストラクティブ。Destructive. And heat waves in Canada during the summer of 2021 indicate that the climate crisis is impacting seriously and can no longer be ignored. The scale of destruction not only to property and infrastructure but also to human life and ecosystems cannot continue to be tolerated. トーレランスなんですよね。トーレレテッド。だったかな Tolerated, especially in regions and populations that are highly vulnerable. Limiting global warming is only possible by taking drastic measures to cut GHG emissions while also removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere through large-scale carbon sequestration. sequestration measures that the economic instability stability じゃないの instability caused by COVID-19 with the focus by governments on funding health initiatives combined with priorities to ensure jobs and economic growth will nevertheless にもかかわらずだっけ nevertheless pose a big challenge to combat the climate crisis. This chapter provides an introduction to the climate crisis, followed by a brief overview of the sources and extent of GHG emissions from various sectors in general, and the agricultural sector in particular, and the challenges to reduce emissions from the latter. The chapter then discusses the potential solutions for reducing GHG emissions from the agricultural sector, including technological investment and policy support required. The separate section is dedicated to introduce the climate neutral and resilient farming system concept and the various steps necessary for assessing and developing sustainable CNRFs やっとわかった CNRFs towards the end. The chapter provides an outline on the various chapters of the book. 読むの遅くなってる。CNRFs すなわちクライメートニュートラル&レジリエントグローバル CNRFs Global Climate Neutral and Resilient Farming Systems Farming Systems これ全部読むの時間が解けていくですね。だけ読もうかな。The sectors that contribute most to GHGs and global warming were energy, industry, agriculture, transport, and associated land use changes per capita, and per capita. Per capita and per percent emissions of GHGs are highest in the USA, followed by Russia, Japan, China, and the European Union, ranked in the order given. In terms of contribution to total emissions, China ranked the highest, followed by the USA, the European Union, India, and Russia. Overall, carbon dioxide accounts for 76% of total GHGs, while methane emissions, primarily from the agriculture sector, contribute 16% of the GHG. The third largest contributor is nitrous oxide, contributing 6% of the emissions, mainly from industry and agriculture, and the remaining 2% by various carbon and nitrogenous compounds. Reducing emissions from various sectors has to be collective efforts since the consequences consequences of climate change are global. Countries such as India argue that since its per capita emissions are much lower compared to other nations, its responsibility is invest and reduce emissions. Reduce GHG should accordingly be less position with which other industrial nations do not agree. Lack of consensus to reduce emissions do not help to move forward, as evident during various meetings since the Kyoto Protocol was established in 1997. The Kyoto Protocol set targets for 37 industrial nations to cut down emissions, but only bound to developed countries under the principle of common but differentiated responsibility. 多分言い回しが絶対調べたら出てくるな。共通のしかし異なるディファーレントエイテッドレスポンシビリティアンドリスペクティブケイパビリティーズas these countries were also responsible for current high level of GHG emissions, as the Doha Amendment ドーハの悲劇しか出てこん。ドーハアメンドメントin 2012アメンドメント The protocol was adopted for the second commitment period ending in 2020 with the aim of reducing emissions by 18%. However, the results so far are not encouraging, with only a few scattered transformative action undertaken. もう忘れたな。ちょっとスキャッターとトランスフォーメーティブアクションフォーメーティブアクションズアンダーテイクン The outcomes and agreements reached at the COP26 summit in Glasgow, Scotland are crucial for the global community to hit net zero emissions. The years and months that follow will tell us the extent to which the COP26 commitments will be acted on. いやー、かな、やっぱ生きるか死ぬかっていう状況の時にこういう話できないよね。それどころじゃなくなっちゃうもんね。The agriculture sector as a contributor to GHG emissions. Agriculture accounts for approximately 20% of global GHG emissions when viewed over a 20-year time frame, while forestry and land use change account for about 7%. Hence, the combined contributions from agriculture, forestry, and change to land use account for more than 1/4 of the world's GHG emissions. Without target action, these emissions are likely to increase as the population increases and the demand for food and raw materials continues to grow. Agriculture contributes substantially 副次的にだっけ substantially to climate change by directly emitting non-carbon dioxide gases, including methane and nitrous oxide from crop and livestock production, and by affecting net CO2 emissions from agricultural soil, forestry, and other land use. ソイルズソイルは火山ですか？ソイルは火山名詞だからいいのか。フォレストリーは火山じゃないんですね。アグリカルチュラルソイルズはまあいいよ。たくさんの種類の土壌があるから。フォレストリーなんだ。フォレストもいっぱいあるんじゃないの？ And other land use. After livestock rice production is the second largest contributor of agricultural methane emissions, with the remaining emissions from the burning of savanna and the use of crop reduced for agricultural purposes. Furthermore, agriculture accounts for 80% of total N2O emissions, mainly from the adaptation of fertilizers, including both synthetic 合成synthesizer synthetic and organic nitrogen 無機かな無機&オーガニックナイトロジェン帰ってきた。These non-CO2 gases are significantly more powerful than carbon dioxide in driving warming over a 20-year span. For example, over a span of 20 years, methane is 84 times more powerful than CO2 in forcing temperature increase, and nitrous oxide is 298 times more powerful. However, Methane has a much shorter lifetime in the atmosphere, lasting only 12 years. 半減期とかの話してる ?Meaning that reducing methane emissions should help to limit temperature increases in the short term, which is necessary. この辺ちょっとわかんないな。でもメタンは大気中であんまり長くないんですよ。たったの12年しかいないんですよ。Meaning that reducing methane emissions meaning that 意味します。メタン排出量を減らすことは、次のことを助けます。限定する、気温の上昇を限定する in the short term, which is necessary. 英文がわからん。なんでこうなるんだ。しかしながら、however, CH4 has a much shorter lifetime in the atmosphere. お腹減った。atmosphere lasting only 12年しか一文が長いんだよ。meaning that reducing CH4 emissions should help to limit temperature increases in the short term なんでだいや、いいのか後を読んだらわかるか short term which is necessary なんでこの which 出てきたそれが必要です。necessary わかんねえ。Estimates of global CH4 emissions from paddy fields alone range from 31 to 120単位がわからないよ。TG ってなんだメタン排出量、水田からの31から112テラグラムテラとか言ういや、キロとかじゃないテラってことでいいのaccounting for up to 19% total emissions, while 11% of global agricultural and emissions come from rice fields. In Asia, paddy fields system alone, besides livestock and energy use, are second largest emitter of GHG emissions. At the same time, GHG emissions from rice cultivation are increasing in other rice growing regions of the world. Rice is the staple food. Staple food for more than half of the world's population and the dominant crop in South and Southeast Asia. more than 3.5 billion people depends on rice for nearly 20% of their daily calories. Therefore, rice production has to be made sustainable through use of viable technology. 見える viable technology option to reduce GHG emissions, especially methane. Reducing emissions from the agricultural sector, largely methane and nitrous oxide, can play a significant role in climate change mitigation. The current farming systems worldwide are intensive and unsustainable. As they mostly rely on high external inputs to increase crop yields. EG 発音。例えば水、化学肥料、農薬、殺虫剤 and contribute to serious degradation of soil. 土壌劣化できた。土壌の劣化 degradation of soils, pollution of water and air, and loss of biodiversity and ecosystem services. In general, intensive agricultural land use systems are a major source of GHG emissions, thereby contributing to the acceleration of climate change. This, in turn, results in frequent extreme weather events, i.e. droughts. I, E 違う I ピリオド E ピリオドドラウト干ばつでよかったっけ木がドラウトフルーズ発音わかんなくなってきた洪水floods and heat stress. Climate warming is substantially substantially aids increasing crop losses due to the increased spread of insect pests, with strongest yield reduction in temperature and subtropical 亜熱帯気候地帯 for major staple grains including rice, maize, and wheat. メイズ忘れた。絶対聞いたことある。トウモロコシだっけ？米とメイズと小麦の主要な生産地帯である亜熱帯で、害虫による被害が出て、収量が落ちるっていうのは、地球温暖化のせいですよ。These studies highlight that the agricultural sector is both a contributor to and casualty of accelerated climate change, and that there is an urgency to promote new systemic solutions to promote sustainable CNRFs だから CNRFs はいいぞ。これらの研究は 際立たせます、農業のアグリカルチャールセクター、農業セクターっていうのは、両方です。貢献もするし、弱めもするし、何をっていうと、気候変動。チーズ、スタディーズ、ハイライト、ざっと、アグリカルチャールセクター。ボス、コントリビューター。to and casualty of accelerated climate change and that there is an urgency to promote new systemic solutions to 一文が長いんですけど、今日はここまでにしよう。27ページ、27、27ページまで。次の予定は、単語を調べることと、続きを読むことです。ありがとうございました。これで